Hello, everyone. Welcome to Outreach with Reggie. I am your host, Reggie Holloway, and it is an honor and privilege to be in front of you today. Today, we are interviewing Mr. Kevin Cripe, who is an education expert and author. Kevin Cripe is a motivational speaker, author, educator with over 27 years of experience inspiring students, teachers, and communities. As an elementary school teacher in Modesto City Schools, he founded an after-school chess program that transformed the lives of hundreds of students from socioeconomical disadvantaged backgrounds. Over 2 decades, his students competed over more than 200 tournaments, including 14 national championships, with many becoming first-generation college graduates. Today, Kevin shares his passion for empowerment and empathy through keynote presentations for schools, parent organizations, churches, and community groups. His talks focus on creating student success without frustration and fostering compassion across diverse communities. He's spoken internationally, including at the Innovative Schools Conference in Atlanta and the Chess in the Schools Conference in London. Kevin also is the author of The Learning Spiral, along with several children's books blending storytelling with lessons of resilience, diversity, and hope. And I'm honored to welcome Mr. Kevin Cripe. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. That makes me sound way better than I feel some days. So, man, that was a good. I need to listen to that almost every morning just to make me feel good about myself. Wow, that's good. Thank you so much. Thanks for that introduction.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. With that being said, I'd like to start off by asking, how are you?
I'm good. Yeah, I was, like I said, I was a teacher for 27 years. I retired and lived in Panama for a while and then Costa Rica for a while. Taught chess there, did some things there. But as the public speaking and as some of the books came out and I was trying to figure out what I need to do, I ended up in San Antonio, Texas, and really like it here and plan on kind of branching out from here and going places, doing some podcasts. So life is amazingly good for me, and I just feel blessed right now.
Well, that's really good to hear, and I'm happy to hear that you are being blessed and the Lord is blessing you in more ways than one.
I just, every day when I have my little quiet time, I try to have it every morning, I am just thankful. And, to be thankful, it's a single quality I like most in children. It doesn't mean those children can't have some rough edges or they can't talk too much, but the kids that are appreciative and thankful and come back and say, thank you, Mr. Cripe. Those kids have been brought up right. And I just, that to me, and so I want to reflect that every day. I'm just thankful.
Absolutely. Just having that space for gratitude.
Yes.
And we have to have gratitude within everything that we encounter. That's when the fruits of appreciation and thankfulness and just peace and knowing that we have peace to be within our day. That's a gift.
Right. We're told to be thankful even for the things that are not good sometimes. And that's a hard thing, but it's the peace that comes with that no matter how big the storm is, I'm all right. I can, as Peter did, you can walk on the water if you're focused the right way. And so I just always, no matter what, and I can complain sometimes. I don't like some things, but just to be thankful and to be appreciative, it sets the day in the right way. That's what I want. Like I try to do. Not perfect, by the way.
With that being said, I want to kind of get into the beginning, right? What was it like entering the education system? Well, what was it from the lens of, all right, before anything, this is what I want to set out to do. I want to be a teacher. Or was it something that you initially wanted to do?
It wasn't for not particularly the best reason. My mom was a teacher. My dad was a teacher. Turns out my older brother was a teacher. And so every year before school started, my sister and I would get dragged off the week before school started to my mom's classroom, and we would set up her classroom for her. We'd help her. And she'd say, sharpen these pencils and do this and get the pencil, get all this, get the box ready and get the desk ready and clean this. And we hated it. All our friends were out playing, and we're there stuck in this classroom. And we looked at each other and we said, we are never going to be teachers. Never, ever in our life do we want to do this. This is so wrong. And I remember my mom, we would put tape on the ground where the desks were supposed to be, and the desks had to be right on that tape. So if you moved them an inch, you got to move them back right on the thing. This is the craziest thing. And so both my sister and I ended up becoming teachers. And of course, one of the things I do is put a little tape on the ground and make sure the desks were in the right. And I just do exactly. And so we all became teachers. I don't think I genetically or environmentally had a choice. Eventually, I tried to sell some hot tubs for a while, but now I better go teach. And so I got into it, and it turned out, I remember my first interview, they had 2 positions open at a school, and there were 4 candidates for the school I was at, which was Shackelford Elementary School. And it was a school with one of the lowest test scores, the highest poverty population in the district. And so I was one of 4 people they interviewed. The first 2 people they chose didn't want to teach at that school. They just didn't like the environment. Whatever reason, they didn't like the environment. So I got the job kind of by default because I was the last candidate. Apparently, I didn't interview well, and so I ended up teaching at Shackelford and at Bret Harte. And I, for the first time in my life, I was around poverty and children in poverty and families in poverty, and I had grown up middle class, and gone to, kind of middle class, upper middle class schools, all through high school, through college. I hadn't been around families and children who had grown up in poverty. And so I had to learn a bunch of things about how we perceive children in poverty and what the reality was.
Good. So, last episode that I've done for the podcast, I kind of talk about early exposure to things, right? And that being early exposure to how emotions are regulated, or early exposure to hard conversations, what you see like first in the institution of family, or what is able to be discussed. So when you talk about some of your early experiences, that being growing up or navigating the institution of school, what were the conversations like surrounding like when you saw poverty and within your family?
Within my family, my mom and dad were both teachers, and we grew up, and I'd say middle class, upper middle class area. We were not exposed much to poverty as children. We just didn't, and it wasn't. It's weird because my dad grew up with 11 brothers and sisters, and they grew up very poor. In fact, one year, and this is a true story, my dad and all his family lived in an abandoned chicken coop. Okay. They had water without electricity. That's just where they lived, right? And yet, because my grandmother and grandfather didn't make it through, I don't think, elementary school, they valued education and they valued faith. And we remember going to grandma's house, and grandma was always singing hymns, and just a wonderfully happy person. When we were sick, we'd get to go to grandma's house. And and so we knew the stories of what our aunts and uncles and my dad had gone through, but we were never exposed to that. But we got the blessing of the generations of prayer, the generations of working hard. And I think every single cousin that we talk to, that get to know, is thankful and appreciative of that blessing. And we didn't really experience it. And so when I came in as a teacher, I was aware what poverty was through my dad's family, but I hadn't experienced it myself, just to be honest.
Okay. That's good to know. As a teacher, when you, because it's never the, how do I say this? It's never the, many of students in your class that may, now you may be able to understand this a bit more, but it's never many who come to you asking for help regarding like outside interferences in the beginning, right? It's more so like usually it's like, hey, I'm not understanding this math problem, but what was it like to have a student like in the beginning ask you for help, if any, regarding like stuff regarding home? Or what did it look like regarding students seeking help from you, and how did you navigate that as a student, or not as a student, but as a teacher?
I think in schools that have high poverty or in high poverty areas, what you hope to have at that school are resources that you can direct people to. Mm-hmm. That you can say, I understand you're in this situation. Here we have this at the school. I understand. Here's this. What's happening in the, like, you're right. In the typical school day, kids are asking you, help me with this, help me with that. It isn't until you really get to know the families, and that's, my first year of teaching was a lot of teachers asking me, who are your smart ones? This is what almost all teachers get. And I'd say, I think this student's pretty smart. They go, no, they've been retained. Most of my students were Hispanic. And so traditionally, if they came in speaking Spanish, you're going to retain them a year, which is a terrible policy. And this is bad for children. But I was told a lot of the students weren't smart, and I thought they were pretty smart. So that's why I started an after-school chess program the second year. And I took students that a lot of people felt weren't that smart, and we went to chess tournaments and competed against the top schools in the country. And then they'd come back and having won trophies and done really well. And I remember a teacher said to me, this is kind of where some of the staff, or not the vast majority of staff, were very supportive, but we're talking about going to the national championships first time, taking students to North Carolina from California and using school money to do it. And the teacher came up to me, and female Hispanic teacher, and she said, Kevin, don't take these kids to the nationals. They will only embarrass themselves. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. The expectations for those students in that school was zero for a lot of people, not everyone. But that society tends to take people who live in poverty, and it is literally sort of like a jail, where if the kids don't get out of it, they end up in it. And so chess was that chance. And then through chess, I got to know the families really well. And then you find out what's going on in the families. And then there are those opportunities to help in ways, to do things. So chess really became that avenue for me to kind of get to see how things work in the neighborhood, picking up students for tournaments, dropping them off after a tournament. And you get a feel for what's going on in the community, and you learn about families, and you learn about how you can help, and sometimes you can't help. So that opportunity not just was for children to get to tournaments and then become first-generation college graduates, it was an opportunity for me to see how things worked, and it was a real learning experience for me.
Yes. And then you touch on this a lot, but if you could talk about, because I can imagine how challenging it may be to step outside of the frame of teacher. But can you talk about what was it like exactly? Like, what were some of the hurdles, or what was it like to step outside of the classroom as you were getting more further into the lives of the youth that you were helping through chess tournaments, or just through having a deeper involvement within the communities that you're helping the youth come out of?
There were so many situations that just on a daily basis, you'd encounter like, I remember I was driving students to a chess thing, and somehow we'd gone by my mom and dad's house. They wanted to meet the students, and so I dropped it by, and they said, "Mr. Cripe, you're rich." I had never thought of myself as rich before. And I go, "What? Why do you think I'm rich?" She goes, "You got sidewalks in your neighborhood."
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I never, like, that was just something was a given growing. You go on sidewalk. And so, and one day at the school at Shackleford, this was years ago now, but a first grade teacher come, and there was a sewage pipe, the sewage manhole cover, whatever it was. There was a tallow factory near the school, and it was pumping raw sewage onto the playground. And that would never happen at another school in the district, but that was okay to happen at that school. And so there were all these things that you watched on a daily basis where it was society, in a way, putting upon families and parents to make it even harder when you'd want to make it where you want to encourage opportunity, where you want to encourage things, and you're trying through my chess program to help people get places, and then you see all these things that go on, and you just go, "Oh, that is crazy wrong," and you see how the system doesn't. It works against helping people sometimes in a way, and it was just amazing in a sad way to see.
How was it? Did you find any involvement from the community or anybody from the community that was willing to step up outside of the systems, outside of the school system at all, that can help attribute to the efforts that you were willing to put out?
Yeah, I remember the first time I was going to go to a tournament, and we needed to raise money to go to a tournament, and because the students couldn't afford the entry fees, and so a couple things happened. First time I had a bake sale, and so you spend like forever baking a bunch of stuff, and you put it out there, and you sell about a tenth of it, and the rest you just got to eat or throw away. And I made like $10, spent like $70, and I was like, I'm just going to ask people. So I got in the habit of going around to people in the community and just saying, and it could be people on the left, people on the right, if we think about it politically. I just say, I'm trying to take kids to chess tournaments. Do you want to help out? And you got a big response of people go, "Are you trying to do something positive?" Of course. And so I did pay for a lot out of pocket, but I also had this enormous group of people who I could count on for support. A couple people I'll just mention. There was a lady named Ursula Foster, the late Ursula Foster. She had been in hiding in World War II with Anne Frank. She was Jewish, and she's mentioned in the diary of Anne Frank. And so she would come to the classroom with her star and with her identity and talk. We'd read a book called Number the Stars. So she would come in and talk about what it was like to be in hiding during World War II. She was a good chess player and supporter of the program. I had another guy, a friend of mine, who ran tournaments, and it was mostly in Silicon Valley. It was a lot of, tech people's children. So it's a pretty wealthy area. And he said, any student you bring to my tournament will be a free entry fee. And his entry fees could be like $60, $80 per student. Okay. I calculated sometime that saved me $10,000 to $15,000 because he made it free. And that gave kids an opportunity to go up and compete against what society perceives as the brightest and top students. And so sometimes we'd win, sometimes we'd lose. They'd go up in these tournaments called quads, and sometimes kids would lose all their games, sometimes they'd win all their games. But that opportunity to go outside the bubble and compete and perform only happened because that guy chose to make it free for every child. So there were a lot of good people who helped me. There were these sort of institutional obstacles sometimes that you deal with to try to help sometimes. And you're just trying to do a good thing, and then you see all this crazy stuff that's working against what people are trying, and they're trying to do a good thing. And so it was just a learning experience for me all the way through, and I enjoyed it. But there are days where you just go, why can't it just be like this? Why do we have to make it hard?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And within those journeys, within that process, I can only imagine what the students are experiencing, because a lot of these students, like you say, are coming from hardened backgrounds or hardened environments. And I remember, as just growing up where I grew up, once I got a chance to experience new areas, traveling out of the state for the first time, a lot of times it felt like an out of body experience because of the news of it. And I know sometimes what may be normalcy to us, for others may be like a beautiful rose, or like a very majestic experience. So,
it was every tournament that you took students to was a chance for those students to go somewhere and experience something that they were never going to experience on their own in their own life. They just didn't have the resources. So when you could take students and travel, even if it was 30 minutes down the road, or if it was on an airplane to fly somewhere, you were giving them something to say, literally to look at and go, I like this better. How do you get here? This is where I want to be. I don't, I love my family, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I don't want to end up in this area. Like I said, we were surrounded by all the major Mexican drug gangs. At one school, don't wear red or blue. The kids weren't allowed to wear red or blue, and we knew all the little gang signs and the gang language, and we knew when there was going to be trouble. And so, but to take students out of that, who were smart kids that just wanted a chance, it's really fun. But also in the classroom, I'll never forget this. I had a student, Gloria Magana, and first class I ever taught, and I learned eventually through talking to mom and parent conferences that her dad had passed away tragically, and so when she got to my class, she wasn't doing her work really well. She just didn't care much about school. She had gone through a lot. There's a lot of trauma, and so she told me this story, and I had forgotten actually, but then I remembered that I had told her, if you do your work, I will let you stand up in front of the classroom and tell jokes, because she liked telling jokes. She was a very funny kid, and so she got her work done, and that she could go up in front of the classroom and tell jokes. And today she's a stand-up comedian. So, so she took it from fourth grade, and now she's a stand-up comedian. And you watch, going to one tournament, we had a group of kids in the back of the car, and I go, hey, Lorenzo, what are you going to be when you grow up? And he looked at me. I'll never forget this, because I'm going to be a pimp, right? So I go, okay, all right, fine, pimp, whatever. And so today he's a sheriff. And you just look and you go, those things that allowed children to get out of that cycle of poverty, where you see generational incarceration. You see the grandparents have been to jail. You see the parents going to jail. If you give kids a chance to get out of that cycle of poverty, they will go, oh, I like this better. And so all those opportunities were just great. And I as I watched the students grow up, I could see how some of them used those chances and did really cool things.
Amazing. I definitely would like to know more about the comedian for sure. But I think in asking that question, I often believe that whenever you or someone you love has experiencing either untapped or unspoken trauma, safe spaces are very important. And within what you're explaining, and just learning more about who you are and your story, and just learning about the kids that you're describing, it's a beautiful story. And I guess my question is, how were you able to establish a safe space for the kids that you both teach and serve?
In education, in a classroom, there's a tremendous tendency to praise and reward the successful. Kids who get 100%, the kids are getting A's, and you go, okay, look at this kid's a star. Everybody be like that kid. And if you have a classroom that functions that way, you engage 10 to 15% of the kids, maybe 20. It's a great class because they'll all go, oh yeah, I can be like that. But there's a bunch of kids who'll go, I can't be that guy. I'm going through this. I'm struggling with this. And what I decided was when we were working on things, if we had a project and just kind of the day-to-day classroom, was I was going to look at three things. One, success. Success is important. I'm going to talk to praise kids who are doing a great job. Obviously, that needs to happen. I was going to equally praise a student who was just trying, because I didn't know what they had gone through the night before. They might not have gotten any sleep, might have heard their mom and dad yell a bunch. Crazy stuff goes on sometimes. And so if that kid could just show up each day and try, I was going to praise them as much as that kid who's getting 100%. And the other person is the kid who improves a little. Like if maybe they got 1 out of 20 on the test, and the next time they got 2, I'm going to go, you doubled your score. That's great. Awesome. I'm so proud of you. And they're going to get as much praise as the kid who got 100%. And so if in your classroom, you've structured it around, yes, obviously successful, that's great. But if you're trying, if you're improving a little, if you just show up, my room is a room where you're going to hear good things about you. Because I'm not comparing you to the top person in the class. I'm comparing you to yourself. And if you can just show up each day and give me your best, then you're my favorite. And I always tell them, if you do that, you're my favorite. Okay. And you can all be my favorites because you don't have to be like Juan. You don't have to be like Maria. You can just be yourself and try your hardest every day. And I'm going to notice that. And I'm going to recognize that in a classroom. And I really did consciously try to do that most days. And of course, you have kids sometimes who get in trouble and they do things that aren't right. And you have to have rules too. But if you are focused on finding the good that's in that child and praising them for it, no matter what they've gone through, the types of trauma that exist and poverty and all the kind of things, they are going to respond positively to you, and it gives them a thought, hey, I can do this.
Absolutely. It's the, I like to call it positivity deposits.
Right. It's exactly right. And all a kid hears is you're not like that other person. Why don't you be like that? Why can't you do this? No, I mean, I play chess quite a bit. My brother's much better than me. I don't know last time I beat my brother. If it was, are you as good as your brother? No, I'm not. But I'm happy being who I am and doing the things I do. And I'm thrilled for him that he's attained a really high level. So understanding that we value a child for who they are and where they are, and we're looking to invest in those messages that say, we can get through this together. That thing allows a child to grow and respond and do really good things.
Absolutely. To be watered and to be able to plant the seeds of the leadership that is in the youth is a beautiful thing.
I got a good story, if you don't mind that story here.
I love a story.
Okay, so every year that we taught, like this year I had a 3rd grade, and all of the math curriculum assumed that they knew their multiplication facts. And of course, at the beginning of the year, none of my students knew any multiplication facts. I gave them a little quiz, like, we don't know. But it happened before. And I had a little process that we learned multiplication facts really quickly. And at the end, after this 4-week kind of intensive multiplication fact thing, where we'd go from 0 students knowing any math facts to like 90% of the class mastering them really quickly, we'd have a competition against the upper grade classroom, like 5th or 6th grade classroom. We'd kind of pair the students, my best student against their best student, and then they'd have a little math fact. They turn it over, and whoever gets it done gets a point for their team, right? So we had a girl who was unbelievably fast, and she was going to beat the top. If she was the 3rd grade best, she was going to beat the 5th grade best. It turned out, because there's more 5th graders than 3rd graders, she was going to have to beat the 2 best, but we had no doubt about that. But a week before the competition, she came to me and said, my parents are taking me to Disneyland next week, and I'm going to miss the competition. I was like, oh man, she's going to win her pairing, and that was a no-brainer. So I called a group of the students who were kind of close to her, and I said, anyone want to take on the top 5th and 6th grader? This girl, Adriana, came in and said, I'll do it, Mr. Cripe. I want to take on the best. And so she practices, and they studied, and we got to the day of the competition, and we go to the library right before the competition so I can get set up. And as we're going in, Adriana goes, hey, Mr. Cripe, I don't think I can beat those boys today. There's the 2 best 5th and 6th graders were both boys. And so I looked at her, and I said, you know what I see when I look in your eyes, Adriana? And she goes, what? She goes, I see greatness. And greatness isn't about you winning. Greatness is about the effort that you put in. And if you keep trying, and if you keep doing your best at everything you're doing, you're going to have some days where you don't get it. You're going to have some days where you get it, but you are going to do amazing things in life. I said, I don't care one iota if you win or lose today. I value how much you've tried, and your idea that you could even take on the best when someone else had moved, that impresses me so much. Don't worry about it. So about a half hour later, we're sitting there. We have to rotate students around because there's 2 classrooms, and she's sitting there in between a 5th grade boy and a 6th grade boy who know their math facts really well, and they all have this paper they're going to turn over and do this paper. Whoever gets done fastest wins their little pairing. And so I go over the rules, and I go ready, set, go. And as you hear the paper turn over, you hear the snap. I've never heard a snap before. And I look, and it's her pencil broke. As she put her pencil to the paper to start, her pencil broke. And she panics, and she goes, Mr. Cripe. So I throw her a pencil, which is really bad. And if you're a teacher out there, don't throw pencils at your students. It's just a bad thing. But she caught it. And so what happened then was best described afterwards at recess. I went over to the other teacher whose class, and we mixed up the students to have this competition. And I said, what did your students say about what happened in my classroom? Did they like it? Because they really liked it. But they all said the same thing. There was this girl, this 3rd grade girl, and when we started, her pencil broke, and she still beat everybody in the classroom. She knew intuitively that I didn't care if she won or lost. I cared, and I was appreciative of her effort. And when you tell students, I value you beyond the result, you are important to me no matter what you do. When you do that, you are putting those deposits of positivity into their lives in a way that changes them forever. And so, we won the competition. We had a pizza party. We're all happy, and everybody learned their math facts. So it was kind of a great thing. But I'll never forget, I don't think I can do it. It's not about whether you can do it. It's you're attempting it, and you're putting in the work to do it. You're going to get it eventually, no matter what happens. So I'm happy. And if you can say that as a teacher to a child, you change your life.
Absolutely, man. I never thought I'd tear up over a broken
pencil. Yeah, I got a bunch of good stories, man, from chess and from teaching, and I just look back and go, I've been blessed because I don't feel like I was particularly great at anything. I just found that it was fun. My standard rule was if they're smiling, they're learning. So if I could get a kid to smile, then they, then I felt like, okay, we can learn. Like one of the things I do is we had enormous mobility. Where we taught there's a lot of migrant workers. And so, one year I had 8 students that stayed with me from the beginning to the end. I had 55 students come through my classroom. So picture that. Just all kinds of new students coming in. And most of the time when a new student come in, I just look at them, and their mom would be with them, and the administrator would be there, bringing them in the classroom, and a bunch of kids looking at them. I go, okay, I just got one question for you. The most important question I'm going to ask you this year. And their eyes would be all big. I go, do you beat up bald teachers? And they'd look, and everyone in the class knew if it's the second or third student, they knew what I was going to ask, and they'd all start laughing, and the kid would laugh, and they go, no. I go, well, then you're my favorite, man. As long as you're not beating up bald guys, I'm good with you, man. Come on, sit down, and let's get going. So if you just have them, if you can get them to smile, you can do really cool things. That was my joy, was to get everyone to be kind of on the same page. A lot of music involved. We had a lot of sing along and stuff. It was just fun.
As we look at public education often sparks debate. In your view, what are its greatest strengths and where does it fall short in preparing students for the future?
Its greatest strength, by far and away, is that we attempt to give everyone a good education. That does not mean there's not disparities between schools where the families are fairly wealthy and schools that are students who are poverty, but we attempt to educate everyone. And sometimes when we see these scores, China did this or Finland did this or wherever did this, we're not actually, Germany did this. Their school systems are set up differently. They're not always trying to teach the kids who are from poverty. So they may have kind of disaffected scores, at least it's our ability to interpret them, because they're not comparing everyone. We attempt to educate everyone. We try to provide opportunity for everyone. It doesn't always work out great, but it's what we're trying to do, and that purposing to do it is a good thing. Now, and so I am 100% behind public school teachers trying to teach in this crazy political environment now that I got out of just before it really started to go wacky. So I think there's an enormous amount of strength and reservoir and goodwill and things that we are aspiring to that are noble. We are putting upon new teachers, especially, in a way that's driving teachers out of school, out of good teachers, people who care, out of education. And so you see, I think the turnover rate of the first 3 years is almost like 50%. 50% of teachers just leaving school to go do something else because it's just what they're being asked to do, the amount of monitoring of stuff that's going in their classroom, to some extent bad administration, or administration that doesn't really have a clue about what teaching is. All of those things, to me, are affect education negatively, and you can see people turning, and that massive turning away of teachers is a really bad sign. It's a concern because you need veteran teachers. Veteran teachers are not perfect. Veteran teachers provide, when I first got into teaching, there were people who would come to me and say, you need to think about this, you need to think about this. They're a reservoir of information that help new teachers. And if what's happening is all the new teachers are not getting much wisdom, and it's just this enormous bureaucracy that's telling them to do it this and this way, and you're driving them out, and that's going to hurt public education. I think, I'll give you an example of when I was teaching, when I first started, there was something called the No Child Left Behind Act. Okay.
Yes.
It was put together by George Bush and Ted Kennedy, right? So right and left, they came together. They said, we're going to help every child. And in schools like mine, where there's a high turnover rate, they had this system where, okay, year one, 20% of your kids are going to be advanced or proficient on a test. Okay, year two, 30%, then 40%, and 8 years, you're going to have 100% of your students at advanced or proficient on a test, right? And so then every school is going to be, all kids are successful. Well, it didn't account for the fact that we have students moving in and out of this, like I told you before. So if you get a new student from Mexico who doesn't read or speak English, and you just lost your student who's your best student in your class, which I had happen a few times, you're not going to go 20, 30, 40, 50, 60%, because the dynamic of what's going on at your school doesn't allow it to happen. And they hadn't thought that through really well. So you get, a lot of times, I have a political view, but a lot of times it's both sides who are clueless trying to tell teachers in the classroom or administrators or school districts, here's what you need to do. And they really haven't thought it through. And that is enormously problematic in trying to find things that we need to get done when you're being told to do something ridiculous.
I can understand. And I see that here in Georgia, funny enough, I remember a few years ago, there was a huge, substantial teacher shortage and they were paying teachers to come back or even substitute teachers. But that was an influx. That was a inconsistency within here as well. But I want to.
Go ahead. Keep going. You're right. It's just that teacher shortages are going to be part of life until they kind of figure out how they want to treat teachers. It's sad.
And that's just like, these are very instrumental within a child's early childhood development. Is the teacher, is the one who pours in and gives them the tools for success alongside the institution of family. So hopefully one day we can come together and find a way.
I think you hit it right. I think family is preeminent. Mm-hmm. Now, within certain children, there is no family structure. There's a really weak family structure. And another story, just chess tournament story, about the importance of parenting and getting it right. One of my students in one of the last groups I ended up teaching chess to, we're going up to a tournament. It was 2 tournaments over the weekend, one on Saturday, one on Sunday, same place. And Liliana, just a great child, 3rd grader in my classroom, and been in chess club. And she goes up to this tournament, competing against mostly boys. And in the first tournament on Saturday, she's playing her last round. If she wins, she gets first place, right? And so she makes a bad move and loses the game, loses the first place trophy. And she comes out, and she is just in tears, right? She is just sobbing. And she goes and finds her mom, and her mom puts her arms around her, doesn't say anything. Nothing I can say. I don't get mad at kids for losing. I don't value them more for winning or for losing. I know if you put them in a competitive environment, they're trying their hardest. So about a half hour later, she's still crying, right? It hurt. And so I look at the mom and I go, you talk to your daughter. You love her. She doesn't want to come up tomorrow. She doesn't have to come up tomorrow. I don't want her to have a bad experience. I want chess to be positive. We know winning's more fun than losing, but maybe she'll be in other tournaments. So she came up the next day, and similar tournament, she's playing almost all boys, and she wins first place. And I have a picture. I don't know if I can send it on this, but I'll send you the picture. But and I always thought it was the mom's reaction to the child losing that allowed the child to win. That trophy she won is 50% at least her mom saying, it's okay. You tried. I saw you try. You didn't get it this time, but I love you. And when kids hear that, they are going to do amazing things. When you allow, C.S. Lewis, founding father of Christian apologetics, or one of them, said we fail forward toward success. We all have to learn our way, and we're going to make mistakes. And it's the people behind us who are not saying you did it right. They're saying we love you regardless. And when that happens, and you can go and try something and fail, and know you're going to be loved, you're going to get it right, and you're going to do it better than anybody could have ever imagined. So I just remember her holding that trophy. I'll send you the pic. And I just go, that was parenting right there. It's not coaching. I just stood there and said, I care about you. I hope good. But as a mom, and it is so important for parents to be a positive influence for their children. And that doesn't mean that children do everything right, or that if they do something terrible, there's no discipline or structure or anything like that. But when they're trying their best, to be there and be supportive of them.
Absolutely. Chess is often seen just as a game, right? But does learning chess actually translate into academic growth or cognitive skills regarding learning, or for students at all?
There is a lot of debate about that. And I listened to it. I wrote a book called The Learning Spiral about how children learn chess optimally. I think if you look at all the data, I think there probably is some small way that children learning chess helps them. But to me, it's like learning the discipline to learn anything well. When I tell students who want to be part of chess club, I say, we're not here to play chess. We're here to study it first. Do you have a love of studying? Like if you're going to, I want to play piano. Do you want to just hit the keys, or do you want to get good at it? I want to learn basketball, or I want to learn soccer. Or you just want to go throw the ball through the hoop by yourself and feel successful? Or do you want to get good and be competitive? So it's a competitive environment. And if you have that discipline, when you display that discipline to study on your own, and I always tell students, I'm never going to come to your house, knock on your door, and ask if you're studying. It's not my job. It's not your parents' job. If you have that internal mechanism that says, I need to do this, I'm going to practice, I'm going to study, that student can conquer anything, right? And so it's providing them the skill set and giving them, and doing some checking, and there's some rewards involved, but it's really up to the student who wants to make themselves better at something. And chess, if it's that thing, it's a great thing because it involves thinking. It involves calculation. The knight is worth 3, but sometimes it's worth a lot more in certain positions. The rook is worth 5, but sometimes it's worth a lot less if it's not being particularly used very well. So it's a big, giant calculation. So there is an ability to calculate and evaluate how things change over time and stuff like that. So that's important. But I think the main thing is it's a student who has the desire to put in the time and effort to want to get better at something. And those students do really well.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned something before, another beautiful story, as you are with all the stories you've shared thus far, about the importance of family regarding Liliana. I want to get her name right.
Right, Liliana.
Liliana's story and how the mom and you are creating the space for her to recognize that it's okay to fail forward. And did I capture that correctly before?
You did. That parent who just says, I'll put my arms around you and love you in this situation is singularly the most important thing, because it allows children to feel secure in the storm. That oh man, just everything is going wrong, but there's a place I can go where I feel secure and I don't feel like I'm a loser. I don't feel like I've done bad. And to have each child have that sense of I can go take a risk, and if I don't get it right, they're going to love me anyway. When that happens, like I said, when you create an environment where yes, success is good. I love to see kids win trophies. I mean, we take pictures, we bring them back to school, show your teacher. But if they've tried hard, if they've improved, if they're doing, I'm going to tell them about that too. And as a parent, those messages of, yeah, it didn't go your way this time, but you tried, and I love you just the same as if you won a trophy. That is a powerful message.
Absolutely. And as we pivot forward, I know we mentioned within talking a bit off record about you yourself are a parent.
I am. I have 3 adopted children from Guatemala. They're adults, and now in California. They live in California, where I used to live. And so my oldest is Jose, and my youngest is Alejandra, and in the middle is a son named Kevin, and I did not name him Kevin. He came with the birth name Kevin in Guatemala. In fact, his middle initial's the same as mine, and H. So he's Kevin H. Cripe, and I'm Kevin H. Cripe, but I had nothing to do with his name. But yeah, they're adults, and there was a divorce back there after they'd been here a few years, where I spent, I think, about 80% of the time raising them. And so raising your own children, especially children of color. I mean, my children are from Guatemala, and I had to learn how that experience is different for them when they were with me than when they were by themselves. And so I always remember my oldest son came home one day. He's 19 years old, and said, "Dad, the police stopped me today." I go, "Oh, what? Where were you? What were you doing?" I go, first question, what were you wearing? Because if you're wearing some gang stuff, then doesn't bother me if the police stop you. You shouldn't be wearing gang. He goes, "No, I was just wearing this." And I go, "Okay, I know that's not gang related." And what were you drinking? "I was just drinking a Pepsi." "Okay, so where were you?" "Okay, it was the University of Cal State Stanislaus, and it's 1 PM, right?" And I go, you're just walking across the campus, drinking a Pepsi. The police roll up on you. He goes, yeah. And they told me to get off the campus. I was really mad. I was just really, really mad. And so I called the president of the university. It's one of the major universities in the state of California system. And I go, why were your security people, why were your school police stopping my son for just walking across campus at 1 PM drinking a Pepsi? Because that wasn't us. It's the Turlock Police Department. And I said, what? So I called the Turlock Police Department and get a hold of the captain, whoever it was. He goes, okay, let me see. And I told him, my name's Kevin Cripe. My son was stopped by the police. I want to know what happened. And he looked, and I will not forget this till the day I die. He said, your son was walking suspiciously at 1 PM, drinking a Pepsi on Cal State Stand, told never to go back on that campus. And I look at my son, I go, dude, how you walk suspiciously? And he goes, I don't know. And it's like, and I hung up, and it just dawned on me that would have never happened to me.
Right.
That would have never happened if he was with me. That's only going to happen if he's by himself. And that as much as I was a teacher in schools that have poverty, as much as I tried to help children in poverty, I couldn't have that experience of that person, because their experience, because the color of their skin is different than mine, is going to be way different as they go through life. And I just had to understand at that moment. And there were other things that happened to my children where I kind of went, wow, that's crazy. But to say, how do I make a difference? What can I do? And so being a parent in this case was learning about how what I was given as this sort of privilege. So I'm not going to be stopped for walking suspiciously at 1 PM. I'm just not. But my son was, and plenty of other people are who have to live that somehow, because of the color of their skin, they're more suspicious than other people. And that's wrong. It's just horrifically wrong. But it's part of the problem we have in this United States that we have a hard time talking about, those are hard conversations to have.
Yes. And I guess that leads right into my next question. What was it like to navigate as a parent with 3 children of color? What was it like to navigate those experiences along with them, regarding experiences of them growing up in your home? And this, as a part to that question, what was it like to have those hard conversations within the household with them being children of color?
There was, in our family, which is my mom and dad, my brother, sister, and their children, there was always a really good sense of humor. We could laugh about things. If we're all sitting around playing cards, my son or daughter could look, and if something didn't go their way, they'd just look and go, is this because I'm brown? And we'd all laugh, because we had a sense of humor. They were like, okay, so we got that there's color, there's differences. So there could be honest conversations about, hey, this is what's going on, and you just need to be careful. Like I said, if you're wearing gang-related stuff, okay, maybe you're not a gangster, but you're not helping yourself out either, right? And all these things, I had to kind of look and decide what's going on here. A daughter's story, and she was 12, 13 years old at junior high school, Turlock Junior High, right? And she's angry. She's angry about the divorce, angry about life. And she hung out. My daughter, as an adolescent, would hang out with the children of gangsters, gay and bisexual children of generationally incarcerated people, and people who had gone to juvenile hall. So her group was a tough group. She was never mean. That was just her group. That's who she hang with. She would wear all black every day to school, black sweatshirt. It could be 100 degrees outside. She didn't care. She was going to wear black. She was not a good student. She was not liked by her teacher. She talked too much and didn't do her homework. Okay. She wasn't mean. She was never mean, always loving. So one day, school's over. She's walking across the campus, and there's a group of really popular students picking on a boy who happens to be gay, right? Just to call him names, saying terrible words to him, make him cry. My daughter can come upon this situation, and she could do anything she wanted to do, right? She could walk in, she could be part of the group, she could walk past, she could be part of the group that's teasing people. What she did was she got herself literally between the boy and the crowd. She pointed at the crowd, and she said, "Why don't you guys just shut the F up?" Now, I wasn't there, and you go, how do you know that that's what she said? Because about 5 minutes later, I get a call from the vice principal of Turlock Junior High School, and I was in my classroom cleaning up after school, and he said, "I'm suspending your daughter for 3 days. You need to come down and find out why." So I drove down to school, and my very first thought, because I have a little bit of sarcasm in my thoughts sometimes, is I'm never going to get that bumper sticker on my car that says my daughter was a student of the month at Turlock Junior High School. But then I went down, and he told me the story just as I told you the story, right? And I look at my daughter, and I go, "Is that what you said? And is that what you did?" And she goes, "Yeah, that's exactly what happened, Dad." So I look at the vice principal, and I said, "Okay, I think the 3-day suspension is way too much. But I'm not even going to argue with it because I knew what I was going to do later. But I got one question for you. What's going to happen to the bullies, predominantly white bullies, right? And the privileged kids?" He looked at me and he said, "Nothing's going to happen to the bullies." And at that moment, when there's this big injustice, you're trying to think of words you can say that won't get you put in jail, because I would not look good in orange, right? So, and there's a bunch of stuff that just rushed through my head, and I was like, don't say that, don't say that. So what I ended up saying to the vice principal is, there's a lot of problems at the school, and you are most of those problems, because you don't even know when a student has done an extraordinary thing. And I looked at my daughter, and I said, "Come on, let's go, vámonos, let's go." And I said to the vice principal, "Have a nice day." And my best teacher, smiley, happy face. So we're walking out of the car, and I look at my daughter. I go, "A couple things. One, not that important, but a little important. Don't say the F word at school. Man, it's never going to help you. Using bad words at school doesn't help teachers, doesn't help administrators, not going to help you. Could we just leave the bad words at the gate?" And there's lots of bad words out there where we hear them all the time, but just don't bring it into school. I go, second thing, and it's eternally much more important, is you did the 100% right thing.
Yeah.
Got the words wrong. You got the actions right. And I said, in 20 years of teaching, I can't think of a time where I've seen another student stand up for someone who's being picked on and literally take that abuse to be on the side of the marginalized and take that abuse from a crowd for that person. I said, there is zero punishment coming from me. And you're going to go spend the day, 3 days at Grandma and Grandpa's, which she'd love. And I call Grandma, my mom and Dad, say, "Here's what she did. She's not being punished. I want you to have fun with her for 3 days." Okay. So she got to go to Grandma and Grandpa's for 3 days and have fun. And then the way I go, "We're going to celebrate your suspension." And in my house, because I was a single dad, what we did to celebrate was that she got to pick where we go to dinner each night. So we went to Olive Garden 3 nights. She got to go to Olive Garden 3 nights in a row. And she got to go to Grandma's 3 days in a row. So it was this big celebration that she got it. She was on the right side. And that matters to me. And when you're raising children, that should matter to you. And so when she got back to school, all her friends who were kids who were in trouble said, "Hey, we heard you got suspended for 3 days. What happened? What did your dad do?" And she said, "Well, I didn't get in trouble, and we got to go to Olive Garden 3 nights in a row." So that was, part of that experience is knowing when to fight. There are a couple times in life when I said, "No, this is not going to happen. This is my children in a school. I know I'm not going to allow that." But there's also times when you just look at your kid, you love your kid, and you go, "They're doing their best." And it's sort of my mantra. You did the right thing. You were on the side of the kid who's being picked on and bullied, and you stood up for that kid. And I love you so much for being that person. Keep being that person as an adult, as you grow up, You're going to make some mistakes. You're going to get some things wrong, but have that heart for other people. And so that's kind of how I parented my children. I'd look for things. If they did something wrong, I'd call. I'd say, hey, no, can't do that. It's wrong. Don't use the bad words at school. I can't defend that. But also, if they did something right, if they're trying their hardest, I was going to go, hey, I'm really impressed. Thank you. Yeah, I love you so much. You're doing great. So that's just, to me, it's parenting. And I'll give you this sort of paradigm to think about. Children watch what their parents are in private and what they are in public, right? So there's four possibilities, right? There are parents who are bad in private and bad in public. And intriguingly, if a child can survive that environment, they intuitively know, I don't want this. If they can see something better, if they go on a trip and, I go over to my friend's house and they're really nice, I want that, right? So that's not good. We don't want that, but there's an idea that in their head they can go, yes, I want something different. There is the parents who do good and are good in private and good in public, not perfect. And the kids grow up, they do pretty well. They have a good moral sense about them. Like, okay, here's what I'm supposed to do. Here's what I'm supposed to be. There is the parents who in public put on airs and talk about how wonderful, how we should love, how we should be, all this stuff. But in private, they're just angry, cursing, wretched people. Those children have a really hard time figuring out what's right and wrong, because they see one thing in public and they experience the other thing. They experience anger and they experience mean words and they experience mean actions. And then they hear the parents talking about how much they want justice or how much they love Jesus or whatever it is, that in public they're always these, wonderful, sweet people, but they come home and are terrible. Those kids have a real struggle trying to figure out who they are and what they want to be. It's not a problem for the kid who's experienced nothing but bad. I want something better, right? It's the kids who are growing up hearing in a public way, I want, we do all these good things, we're so special. And then in private, the parents are terrible. And if I have the chance to talk to parents out there, be what you are in public and private, have it be the same, because your kids are watching and listening to everything you do. My dad had preached a sermon one Sunday. And we were all in the back of the car, and we're driving home from the sermon, and a beautiful sermon, and he gets pulled over by a police, and he gets really mad at the police officer who give him a ticket for running a stop sign. And he ends up cursing at the police officer, right? Because, why don't you believe me? You should be, just 15 minutes after his sermon. And he wasn't like this normally, but we were all in the back, and we didn't say anything because we're just kids, and we knew Dad was mad. And so but then later, as we became adults, and my dad would preach an occasional sermon, we'd go, well, Dad, did you flip off a police officer on the way home? Did you go by? What did you say? Or did you just get mad and curse after you preached the sermon? And so kids watch and listen, and he would always just kind of go, oh, no, I didn't. Oh, I feel. So as adults, as children, we were never going to tease our dad about that. But as adults, we took great joy in pointing out that to our dad was a little inconsistent there with his sermon. You can't preach about God's love and then be cursing at police officers 10 minutes later. But all children watch and they listen to what their parents are. And if you are doing your best to be authentic and consistent, it maximizes your children's chance to grow up and make good decisions. Not that they're going to make perfect decisions, but that's what you want to do as parents. That's my message to parents out there.
Absolutely. So we had the opportunity to talk about the role of the educator and the role of the father, but I feel like it's fitting to talk about the role of the author. And as we do so, I had the opportunity to read a few of the books that you sent over. And I wanted to know, what was some of the inspirations behind the stories, behind the books that you sent? I believe it was really good, very interesting within the one about The Boy Who Cried Hoax. And then you have other ones like Princess Max. And of course, the one I have in front of me right now, The Good War. But if you could talk about some of your inspirations or even the things behind the books, or what these books kind of entail in a way, from your point of view?
Okay. When I retired from teaching, I moved to Panama, Boquete, Panama. It's a lovely community, right? Just beautiful. And it was there. I was there during COVID, but I was also there during, I'll just say, Trump won. Trump, first time he's president. And I was sitting there, and I learned not to do this, but I was watching news from the U.S., and I was just watching a lot of crazy stuff. And I thought, I wonder if I could write and have an illustrated book that kind of talked about what happens if we have leaders who are angry and mad and greedy and manipulative and fearmongers and the whole thing. So I wrote The Little Boy Who Cried Wolf originally was the title. Then I changed the title to The Little Boy Who Cried Hoax. I think people recognize that word hoax more. And I had it illustrated, and I really liked it. And it turns out it's a really dark political allegory, and it really is not a children's book per se. But I really liked writing, and I enjoyed it. And but a few years later, as I was sitting there then during COVID in Boquete, Panama, and I had this 3-bedroom house to myself, and it had a backyard that went into a jungle, and I could walk over to this hotel parking lot and exercise. I mean, it was not a hard time in COVID in Boquete, Panama, but I had a lot of hours to write. And I had a boy go to Princess Max who, my lone American student, who was 9 years old, boy named Alex, biracial. And one day we were having chess, and there were like 9 Panamanian students in my group. And Alex, I think 8 years old, came in, and he's wearing a floor-length blue dress, right? And he just looked at this sort of joyous expression. He goes, "This is my favorite Cinderella dress." Mm-hmm. I'm like, and I looked, I honestly had never seen a boy in a dress before, and I taught 27 years. But I didn't care either. It doesn't matter to me. Kids are kids. And so I just looked and go, "That is lovely. Come on in, sit down." And so all the students were watching me, and they were like, he doesn't care if the boy's in it. I don't care. And it doesn't matter to me. We're all going to learn chess together. And if they had a problem with it, they could not do chess. I mean, I'm going to accept kids for who they are, right? And so then while I was sitting there in Boquete during COVID, I was like, between that story and then kind of knowing a lot of the friends of my daughter, there's a story about Princess Max. I wanted it to be a boy who's really confident and but wear dresses. And so that story got made. The Good War, I remember reading, and somehow I was reading online that in the state of Tennessee, there's a guy named Nathaniel Bedford Forrest who was the first Grand Imperial Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. And as of the year 1980, and maybe still today, I don't know, his bust was in the State House of Tennessee. They honored and revered the Grand Imperial Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. I thought that was crazy. And you can Google it. There were schools named after him. Okay, I don't know that that's a great idea. I don't know that's how I want to go to NB Forest Elementary School. But I thought, okay, there's a story there I could write about an African-American student having to go to NB Forest Elementary School and deal with racism. Yeah. And deal with real direct racism and what that would be like. And so there's a teacher in there. He has Miss Margie. My mom's name was Marjorie. And Marjorie is a real wonderful teacher in a difficult situation at school. But then she has to talk to the parent of the boy who experiences racism, and it's a complicated thing. And I don't know that I have all the answers. It's just a story I really wanted to write. When I got done with it, I looked at it, and there's questions at the end of it that I put questions at the end of each book that you can talk to. I think The Good War and Princess Max are both very readable stories to children. Yeah. I don't know that The Little Boy Who Cried Hoax is really one. It's just sort of a political allegory that's dark. But the other two, I think, really work well, and I've heard that from a lot of people. And they say things like, we couldn't, in Texas, I get sort of a bureaucratic banning of particularly Princess Max, because they don't want a book like that in a school. and they don't want it. So like they subsidize the book fairs, a lot of the book fairs. So if you're trying to go to a book fair, no, can't get Princess Max on a book fair because the state of Texas is monitoring the books that come in. So there's going to be a reaction from some who don't like it. But most of the people, I did a reading at Travis Park Methodist Church in San Antonio, where I go to church. People there really liked it, and the people there have really liked the books and think they're good books. So I know some people are going to like things, people not going to like it. But my journey as an author was as I connected to things, like I was going to put my mom in a story, right? I didn't want to put my mom as a teacher. My mom, and you just have to picture she loved students. Every single day before school, she would go around from desk to desk to desk, put her hand over that desk, and pray for each child in her classroom. She did that for 40 years in a row. And there's no doubt. And no matter who those children were, no matter what they looked like, no matter where they came from, she loved them all. And I ran into a friend when I changed schools. A lady came up to me and she says, "Are you Marjorie Cripe's son?" And I go, "Yeah, I am." She goes, "She was my first grade teacher." And I went, "Oh yeah, cool." She goes, "She was my favorite teacher." And she said, "You knew two things about Mrs. Cripe. You knew she loved you. That's true. But you also knew you didn't want to make her mad." Oh. Yeah, you knew that too. I knew that too. So she was going to be in a story. The Princess Max is an incorporation of some things I had thought through, and watching my daughter go through things, and watching the boy in chess. And so I kind of look at things as an author and go, do I have the time, effort, and energy and want to write? But then it's getting things illustrated. And you'll notice that each book has a different illustrator. And I don't know how it happened, but each illustrator matches the sort of vibe I wanted to have for each story. And you can look at the illustrations, they're all different. I think The Good War, there's some, if you really look at the pictures in there and you look at the illustrations, the words, it's an amazingly well done illustrator. Rebecca Sampson from the UK did that. But Princess Max got some pictures in there that are just unbelievable. And then the guy who did The Little Boy Cried Hoax, it's a guy from Venezuela who lives in Colombia now, and he did a great job. And they're all uniquely different, but they all really match the story I want to do. So the joy of being an author when you're getting a book illustrated is to find the illustrator who best represents what you want to say. And in that case, as I'm reading through stories, like when I do a book reading, I'm looking, going, that's exactly what I wanted. That is what I wanted. They did it perfectly. And that's true for all three books. So it's kind of it's not like a child in a way, but it's you created something, you see it, you see people go, oh, we really like that. To me, it's just fun when I get the time. There are some other books I want to write, but for now I'm focused on these three books.
Absolutely. Now, how important is it to tell these stories, and how instrumental do you believe these stories are in not only when we talk about childhood development, but what it means ultimately as from a societal standpoint? And I'm going to step away from the camera real quick but I'm going to be right here. I'm just looking my charge up to the laptop.
Got it. No problem. So I'll talk while you're doing that. So my thing is that I would love to see, particularly with the two books, The Good War and Princess Max, parents read to children, talk about things. They are issues of the day, race and gender and all these things that I think the books can give you an open conversation about. So I am for that. Of course, I would like people to buy lots of books, because when you're an author, that would be a good thing. But I wrote books because I like writing, and I've done some writing. And so my joy is in seeing, and when I was doing when I do readings and I'm looking at people, and something's read, and they go, and you see their eyes light up. I love that. And so if it's a group of 100 people, that's awesome. If it's a group of 2 people, I don't care, because if I'm reading and seeing that they're enjoying it, it's a good vibe. Would I like to see, the books in libraries and book fairs and places where people have access to them and can look at them and read them, I would love that. That's kind of why I'm on podcasts and doing some things. So, but I wrote the books because I happen to like writing, and I like what I wrote, and I like the way they were illustrated. And I do think in those areas, particularly of race and identity, who we are, we're talking about LGBTQ plus things and talking about race, those areas we have a very, very hard time talking about. Mm-hmm. And so these books, The Good War and The Little Boy Who Cried, The Good War and Princess Max, really do give parents an opportunity to read to children and go, okay, what do you think? Because in Princess Max, the boy Max, it can be a little bit over the top sometimes. And you can say, should he have really said this? How could have this happened? Would this, or in The Good War, would this be the decision you would make? If the mom makes a decision or the family makes it, what do you think should have happened? There's all kinds of questions, and I think good books lead themselves to adults asking questions. I mean, I read, my favorite thing to do in the classroom was read after lunch, get a book and read. And the best books were the ones where I'm reading it and the kids like it, but I'm going, oh, he put something in there for me, for the adult. And then I can kind of explain that to the kids. And so I wanted books that adults would appreciate, but that would be kid-friendly. So.
Nice. As we wrap up the interview, it's been amazing just to hear your story, hear the multiple journeys along the way within your 27 years, even through teaching, and even as the honor and title of parent. And I love to ask the guest this one particular question. And that is, what would you say your why is for what you've had the opportunity to do, or the blessing to do, the privilege to do? And is your why something that you found during the journey, at the destination, or before the journey starts?
I think my why came at the start of the journey. It goes back to the story I told initially about the teacher who said, don't take these students to nationals, they'll only embarrass themselves. And I just so loathed that answer. I like the person. That's a good person. People can have opinions that I don't like. That's fine with me. But at that moment in time, what was crystallized was I had taught all year. I had students I knew were smart and needed an opportunity. And someone was saying, don't do this. These kids can't do it. And I knew at that moment, this is something I have to do. And I had, like I said, I had lots of people help me out. I probably over a 20-year period spent $100,000 out of my own pocket to do what I do. I'm never going to get back and don't want it back. I'm blessed to have the life I have. And to see the amount of things that have come out of the lives of students, good things, because they had that opportunity. That why started with, don't do this. I was going to go, no, I'm going to do it. If I have to pay for it, if I have to do it all myself, I'm going to do it for a long time. I'm going to have students bring trophies to school. This was just going to be what I'm going to do. And I wasn't really particularly mad. I was determined. This is going to happen. I've been placed at this school for a reason. The last person in an interview group of 4 that got a job because the first 2 didn't want it. I was going to make the most of my opportunity. And to be given that chance to impact the lives of children in a positive way, doing what I was doing, that was my why. It's been my why in most of life. It's why I write books. I want to be able to have some positive message about things for parents and children. I've gotten older, don't do as much these days as I used to do, but it's all good. Life's good. I've been blessed. If I fall over the cliff tomorrow, I wake up on the other side of the dirt. God's been good to me. So I got no complaints. And so to me, like I said, I grew up in this wonderful, loving home that it's kind of like a terrarium in a way, where I remember meeting. I think I met my first person of color, first Mexican person in high school. So I had a lot to learn, and that going to the school and being a teacher at a school where 90% of the students were free and reduced lunch and 90% of the students were Hispanic, and all the drug gangs around and everything, was just this enormously challenging but awesome experience, because it told me there's a bunch of kids out there who, if given the opportunity, can do amazing things. And that is why how I found my why.
Well, that's beautiful. So with that being said, is there anything that you would like to tell the viewers, the listeners out there who are listening, that are trying to find their way, or that believe that they may be unqualified or may not know how to go about what they want to do on this big blue sphere?
I would say, if you're going to have friends, close friends, have friends who can tell you you're wrong and you listen to them. I don't necessarily agree with them. One of the things you have to learn is to listen to people who tell you, like, Kevin, have you thought about this? Can you do this? You can be, when you're young, you can be headstrong and think you can do anything. And I've been that person before. But then as you move on, you realize that a lot of people are telling you, maybe think about this. So get people in your life that you listen to. Have that determination. Have that sense that I can do it. But also have the sense that there's going to be people out there who will tell you things you don't like, but are trying to do the best to help you too. And when you can connect like that and connect with other people and work together, we don't all have to be alike. Like I say, and when I'm in Costa Rica, there's a church I go to, a lot of people, pretty conservative people. But when it's time to help out in the community, they help everyone. They have good hearts. Preacher doesn't talk politics from the pulpit. I like that a lot. I mean, he's a good preacher. I go to, in San Antonio, a group of people pretty much on the left end of things. But when it's time to help out in the community, when there's homeless, when there's people who have need, they show up and help. You're going to get help in a lot of different ways from people you might not have suspected would ever be interested in helping you. And you'll be able to look back in your life and just be thankful for those people. And some people go, well, I didn't like what they were saying at the time, and then you realize they were trying to do the best thing for you. So always be thankful wherever that help comes from. And don't look at people necessarily by what they say, because a lot of people say a lot of crazy. I get words wrong all the time. Look at what they're doing to impact their community. How do they help other people? If you can surround yourself with people who are helping other people, you can work with almost anyone. Okay, you get someone who's out there blathering mean, angry words. Well, they don't want to work with anyone. They're off in their own little world. But there's a lot of people out there who just want to see good things happen in their community and find a way to work with people, and you're going to find your purpose and your why, and lead a blessed life.
Well, thank you. With that being said, thank you so much for joining the show. Thank you for joining me on today's episode. I'm thankful for this conversation, and there's many of these stories I'll be taking with me for a lifetime. If there's any where that can find you, if you have any new books or anything coming out, the floor is now yours.
Okay, I'll get you the list of connections where people can get the books. I'll give you the website, and then my own other website I use for public speaking. So I'll get you that information. And if people want to contact me, I'd appreciate it. That'd be fun. I'd love to come talk or do whatever, do a book reading. It's all fun. And I'm in the U.S. now, so it's easy for me to get from place to place in the U.S. So it'll be a joy. And I'm thankful for each person who has me on. So thank you, Reggie, and thank you for your life, for what you're doing and attempting to do. Because your life hasn't been easy, I don't think. I think by no stretches. And to see the good things that you're doing and the way you want to impact the lives of students and communities and children, I'm just really impressed. So thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thank you. With that being said, this has been Outreach with Reggie. Remember to be kind to your neighbors, to show up for your community, and most importantly, show up for yourself. Thank you, and take care, you guys.